Yes, it is officially fall. We have to bid the summer of 2024 adieu. Calvin, I'm not ready for it to go, man.
It flew by. It's just the blink of an eye.
Man, where did summer go? Man, you know, the older I get, the quicker this goes by, man. It was just 80 degrees all last week, Calvin. Right? I mean, just beautiful. I was complaining a little bit. It got to be about 86, 87. But Calvin, now it's 50. I got up, it was 50, man. Are you ready for 50?
To be completely honest with you, I like 50 more than I like 85.
Oh, hey, listen, man. I got to get the snowblower out and start making sure the snowblower is ready. I'm just saying, man. Man, where did the summer go? You know, you know, it lasts the same period of time every year, Calvin, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we are not getting the snowblowers out anytime too soon.
Hey, yeah, man. Anyway, we'll get through I think the high is going to be 60 today, a little higher than 60, a little bit more than that. And, normally I've been coming to work in short pants and polos, and that just wouldn't work today, Calvin.
Yeah, I got jeans on for the first time
So
in a
do I,
while.
man. So do I. So is it time to put the sandals away?
Yeah, it's Wisconsin. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a random hot day in October.
Well, man, it's time to put the sandals away. It's time to. Yeah, I know I'm exaggerating, but man, I'm already missing summer, man. Concerts in the park, you know, picnics, working on the yard, you know, edging the grass, making sure the flowers are pruned, the bushes are pruned. Man, I don't want to see you go. But I guess, Calvin, if we don't want to see it go, we have to leave Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, and go somewhere where you're probably not going to like the summer.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that. But anyway, we've got a lot of things lined up for you this morning. We're going to talk about, Calvin. We're going to spend some time talking about you and your generation in voting. And, there was a time, not so long ago, I was at an event on yesterday at a church. Reverend Jesse Jackson was there and his son and a couple of Congress people were there. And they were talking, and we were talking about voting. And Reverend Jackson has an organization that is traveling around the country trying to organize and get young people out to vote. And so, I, young people aren't the only ones. This is not about young people not voting because uh, young people do vote. But there's, the millennials and the Generation Z, young voters have growing power, but broken politics leave them fatalistic study finds. And this is a study from UC Berkeley. And Calvin, from, the mouth of babes, can you give us some insight as to why I'm not saying a large percentage of younger voters don't vote, but there's a segment, as there is of all of us, that doesn't vote. Why do you think some from your generation and the generation under you aren't so enamored with the politics and voting in this country?
I think it's a couple things. I think primarily just there's a lot going on in politics is another thing that you have to pay attention to. If people my age have jobs and then they have hobbies and they have friends and they have relationships, and then to add politics onto that is another thing. And a lot of them have this view that the politics doesn't really actually affect them. So since it's an added thing that they don't want to have to worry about and they feel it doesn't affect them, they choose not to.
Well, Calvin, the things you just mentioned. Now, phone lines are open as always at 844-967-2789. You talked about your friends having jobs, your friends having, friends and other things. I think everybody's generation experiences those things. But as I was, delving into this article, Calvin, it basically said that a lot of your generation, you're millennial.
I'm Gen Z, but I'm older Gen Z.
Yeah. Okay. Gen Z. Gen Z. So Gen Zs, millennials, and even some Xers have, are turned off by what happens and what is going on with them politically, because the politics of what is happening is kind of handcuffing them with their abilities to move forward in the society. Is it safe to say that might have something to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's certainly, and I see this more online than amongst my friends per se, but there's definitely a segment of my generation who thinks that the whole system is broken and the only way, and voting's not going to fix it. Something would have to happen where we need to get a new system somehow, which I view as naive and kind of ridiculous, but there is a large population of mostly younger people who feel that way.
Calvin, you talked about a new system. Clearly the system we have is broken. I don't think there's anybody who can argue about whether or not the system that we presently have is working. And it probably has been broken for a long, long time, for, I would say decades. But there's no chance that the system is going to be changed. I mean, I just don't think there's any way possible that the system that we presently have in this nation is ever going to be changed. There are too many people who benefit by the way the system is presently situated, Calvin, that to think that the situation is going to be. I remember as a young man, I, believed that I was going to be a part of changing the system. At around your age and maybe even a little bit younger, I was around a bunch of people, and we really thought that we would change the system. And we worked for a while to do that. And guess what happened?
You didn't change it that much.
The system changed us because we wound up having families and we wound up joining, the system, Calvin. And the system has been around so long, and the system is so powerful in this nation that it will alter the views of those of us who know that it needs to be changed. You look at a Democratic and a Republican Party, and so many people think that two-party system doesn't work anymore. And yet the chances of changing it is a pipe dream. 844-967-2789. Calvin, we got a couple of text messages. You want to read those for us, please?
Yeah, we got Tony texting in on the YouTube line. He says it's all fighting with little outcome until something like the Dobbs decision happens. And absolutely agree that government hasn't looked out for the younger people. And yeah, I guess I agree. That's definitely how a lot of people in my generation feel.
All right, 844-967-2789. But what the younger people uh, are starting to find out is with their numbers, if they mobilize and organize, if ever there was a time that they can probably bring about a change, it is now, because it it requires different thought. 844-967-2789 is the number. I'm going to talk a little bit on the other side about why young women, uh, might be the ones who are in the position to bring about that long awaited and needed change for the future.
It's a shame the way you mess around with your man. It's a shame the way you hurt me. It's a shame the way you mess around with your man. I'm sitting all alone on the telephone, waiting for your call. When you don't call at all, it's a shame the way you mess around with your man. It's a shame the way you play with my emotions. It's a shame the way you mess around with your man. You're like a child.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. I was reading this article, and it was from the Berkeley Institute for Young Americans, and it was pointing out that the fact that young voters, Generation Z, millennials, the sheer power that they have, and Generation Z. And so I was at an event last night at a church, and Reverend Jesse Jackson was there along with his son, and and other political leaders, Congress people and others. And they're moving around the country trying to mobilize and get young people to vote. And so when they told us to raise our hands, those 80 and older, raise your hand. There was one person, 80, 70s, raise your hands, 60s, raise your hands, 50-year-olds, raise your hands, 40-year-olds, raise your hands. They got down to 20 and 30-year-olds. And I looked around, there was only one person 20 years old at the event, and there were a couple 30-year-olds. So it made me stop and think and ponder. This is clearly a missed opportunity, but I think that's the main reason why so much attention, Calvin and others, is being paid now to the young vote. Younger voters had a broad, decisive impact on the 2020 presidential elections and congressional elections in 2018 and 2022, according to research released by Berkeley Institute for Young Americans. Now, with the 2024 presidential election just months away, the Institute's analysis raises concerns about possibly low turnout among young voters in November. Two new studies offer a deeply detailed look at the social values and political behaviors of voters ages 18 to 43 and jarring insights into their generational beliefs. Some findings diverge sharply from prevailing stereotypes about the political behavior of young voters. Surprisingly, the Institute reports the values of Generation Z and millennial voters across the political spectrum are converging towards agreement on key issues. But the researchers found a substantial generation gap in American politics. Both young liberals and young conservatives want effective government action to solve challenges, while their parents and grandparents have been in conflict for a half century over the role of government. So, Calvin, you see, that's where we are now. The conflict between your grandparents, your parents, those are my generations, totally divided on whether somebody's a Democrat or a Republican. And it doesn't seem to be addressing. That is why we talk about there needs to be a change in the way government is run, because it's not addressing the issues of your generation.
Yeah, I guess I completely agree. I would disagree with the article a little bit to an extent. That's when it says that young conservatives want effective government. In my opinion, young people have divided into three groups. There's the liberal camp, there's the disaffected group that they just don't care, and then there's just the typical group that's captured by MAGA, just like the older folks. There's definitely a population of young people who are within Donald Trump's cult.
I would say, Calvin, that's a much smaller group than the young group who right now has come on board with Kamala Harris. One of the reasons why Kamala Harris is where she is right now is she's been able to garner support from a younger group that was, remember, we used to have the conversations about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? You and I even had it on the air, and you clearly stated, man, you weren't feeling.
Yeah, no, that's how I was saying. Like the three groups, with Joe Biden in the race, the people who didn't care was definitely the largest group, and that group exclusively moves to Kamala Harris. It doesn't go to Donald Trump at all as we get closer to the election.
Well, that clearly, with all the things that I've been reading, part of what her push has been is younger voters who clearly stated, no, they're not all in on Kamala Harris. But I think when they look at the alternative, you know, a guy that we're talking about Joe Biden being 82 and younger people just couldn't feel him. They're certainly not feeling the guy that's 78, right?
Yeah, I mean, he sounds just as old as Joe Biden and even crazier.
Yeah, I mean, really. 844-967-2789. I'll tell you, on the other side, we're going to talk about young women and why they become more liberal. 844-967-2789. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show on a Motown Monday.
And I must complain. I just can't be confined. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's a shame. It's a shame the way you hurt me. night. A new day is dawning, sunny and bright. But after I've been crying all night, the sun is cold and the new day seems old. Since I lost my baby, since I lost my baby, oh, since I lost my baby, since I lost my baby. Birds are singing and the children are playing. There's plenty of work and the bosses are paying. Not a sad word should a young heart be saying. But fun is a bore, and with money I'm poor.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. That's 844-967-2789. So before we went to the break, I was talking about, just the Generation Z and the millennial generation and how these younger people really are the prize as the Democrats and the Republicans are fighting to try to convince younger people to come out and vote, and that they can certainly be the change agent necessary and can determine who the outcome of this election, can wind up winning the election. And so you can see signs of it already taking place as Democrats and Kamala Harris has been able to, wind up pulling ahead of Donald Trump since she wound up in, running, replacing Joe Biden. And before I go to the phone lines, this is just something to back that up. And this is in today's USA Today. Young women have become more liberal. Stances on abortion, race relations, gun violence, and the environment have moved further left compared with a decade ago. I can say I'm surprised. I can't say I'm not surprised. The day after the 2016 election, my women's and gender studies professor at the University of North Carolina gave us space to discuss our feelings. The room was predominantly young women, many of whom were disgusted by the Access Hollywood tape and fearful for what the future held. Many of us, myself included, were worried about a future of Roe versus Wade and democracy as we knew it. In the end, we were right to worry. It was a clear turning point in my adolescence and a turning point for the nation, for the young women in my women's study class. It would mean fundamental change to our lives. I was left leaning in 2016, but I wasn't politically engaged. I grew up in a conservative rural town and didn't know how politics shaped my life. My politics were largely shaped by the Obama years and my naivety about how the world worked. That changed when Donald Trump got elected president. Let's go to Gary from Sussex. Good morning to you, Gary. You say what?
Well, my daughter-in-law is a young African-American woman. And when we talk politics, she doesn't even really want to be involved. She doesn't like to talk about it. She's not going to vote. She's just turned down by all of the rhetoric because they all lie. She said they all lie. And I agree. I agree that Donald Trump lies. I agree that Kamala Harris lies. But one of the things that I talked to her about is what I call low informational voters. And there's on both sides. So I did an experiment with my wife. Now, my wife is 70 and I'm 72. And I asked her not to watch any Fox, any conservative stuff. And you can watch whatever you want to watch to get the news. And so she watches The View and she watches this and that. Then after a week, I asked her, I said, how do you feel? I said, Donald Trump is a pig. How can you be voting for him? And I said, oh, okay. Well, what's the problem? Oh, he's terrible. You can't, he's going to wreck democracy, all this and this and that. She's all carried away. So Then I had to deprogram her and have her watch Fox and watch
Hey,
MSNBC
Gary.
and stuff like that.
Gary, let me ask you. You have to deprogram your wife. Doesn't your wife? My wife has her own mind. I've been married for 43 years. I'm not trying. My wife has her own views on things. I'm not forcing her into my views. So you say that you have to deprogram your wife as if she doesn't have her own views.
Because she's a low informational voter when she watches one side and not the other side. When I finally get her to say, okay, fine, now you're going to start watching Fox and you can watch MSNBC, because
you can tell her what to watch. Hey man, listen. You sound like Gary. You sound like a throwback, man. You really do.
It was an experiment. I wanted to see, because my wife she is a conservative Republican, but I wanted to see if she would change if she didn't watch any Fox, if she only watched the liberal side. And she did change. It was terrible. I couldn't believe it. It took me a week to get her deprogrammed to, so she started understanding that, hey, you can't just watch one side.
Hey, Gary.
Talking about to all your,
hey, Gary, you kind of sound like a cave dweller. I'm sorry. I don't think there are many women who would appreciate, what you just said. Republican or Democrat.
going to do. And it proved that people who listen to only one side are low informational voters.
All right, Gary, thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Al from Milwaukee. Hey, man, that's a tough act to follow, Al. Can you?
Yeah, but the other part of this is historic. Very few people look back at the history of our politics. Not the nation, but just the politics. And over the years, you're looking at what Trump brags about, where he did took away the rights of women. When did they get those rights? The 1930s.
Yes.
It ain't even been 100 years. Now they've taken away a lot of the rights that they fought for in all those years. When you talk about the young people not voting, what are they voting for? A bunch of old dogs
Yes.
in Congress and whatever, sitting up here deciding what rights they can have and what have you. When they went from slavery to women's rights to whatever, they constantly are looking for a dollar bill. The dollar bill dictates how they decide what's best for this country, not about the people. When we got equal rights, or at least that's what they call it, basically they did everything they can to send jobs to other countries so they can make more money. They don't care about the American people. What are these kids got to vote for? That's the problem. If they had something to vote for, they would go vote. When I was in high school, I used to go out and knock on people's doors, encouraging them to vote for things that would help build our educational system back in Detroit. What do kids got to fight for now? To get these idiots out of office. But the problem is the younger people coming behind them are just like them. They talk just like them and they act just like them. We need to start educating politicians that you represent the people. And you need to find out what the people need and what the people want and represent that, not the dollar bill.
Hey, Al, man, great call, man. Great call. Thank you very much for it. Great call. Let's go to Mike from Kenosha. Good morning to you, Mike. Your thoughts?
Good morning, sir. Appreciate Motown Monday.
Hey, Mike. Sir was my father. He passed on a little while ago. I'm Earl.
All right. Sorry to hear that.
All right.
Yeah, in this day of corporations are people and money speech, you would think, we'd be the best educated, highly connected in, embracing our politics. Instead, what we have found is fake news is expanding. Misinformation is rampant, and now we have a new industry called influencers that are basically wagging the dog here. And the public, the victim here. For a well-functioning republic, we all know we need good information, and here we have found ourselves. Our young people are getting disenfranchised. But it's because of the misinformation that's being pounded, on us 24/7. I don't know, how many political ads you saw over the weekend watching football.
Oh man!
But I found it over and over and over, and nothing was a substance that was you could embrace. It was all poking at the other side. It had nothing to do with truth. It has to do with influence. And now the media has been pitting our generations against each other for a long time. We all know this. But here we are wondering why young people like Calvin seem to be disconnecting. It's because we don't have the infrastructure to support good information. We have so much work to do here as far as strengthening the rebar, if you will, in our democracy. It's been under attack for over 40 years now, and it's showing its warts. We want our young people to look at adults for leadership and, advice and guidance. But what we have found in this divided era is the media has put us against each other. So the natural fallout, I'm afraid, is especially young people who, again, they've been watching these same ads that you and I watched over the weekend, as far back as they can remember, 10 years, 15 years, they've been watching these character assassinations being thrown at our people, at our leaders. And when time, that's going to take.
Mike, the insanity in what you just said, which was 100% accurate, is why would a society not want its youth, which is the future of that society, to get truth, to be as educated as possible about the nation and about how the nation works so that the nation can continue? Why would we not want to give them and make sure that they're equipped to be able to move forward with the society?
If we wanted a more perfect union, we could find it. But instead, the moneyed interests, are wagging the dog, and we have tribalism that is dominating our politics. It is not democracy. It's not republic. It's tribalism that's dominating, and it always will until we can regulate the dark money and bring it to light so we can see what's going on. We don't have to have this false
hey Mike, thank you,
fake truth.
Mike, thank you very much for the call. Phone lines are full, so we're going to come back to you guys on the other side. We'll continue the conversation. I got a lot more to talk about. It's a Motown Friday on the Earl Ingram Show. 844-967-2789.
Can't see how my hope's gonna last. Good things are bad, and what's happy is sad. Since I lost my baby, 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 I feel so sad. Since I lost baby, since I lost, it's hard to carry on.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Text us at that same number. So, we've been talking about the youth. And I was saying I went to an event yesterday where Reverend Jesse Jackson and his son and some Congress people were there at a church, and they were talking about the mobilization that is going on all around this nation, trying to mobilize young people to vote. And so that's what this subject is that we're talking about right now. Let's go to the phone lines. And Susan from Kenosha. Good morning to you, Susan. I'm sure you've got a lot to say.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning. All right, we lost Susan. Let's go to Brendan from New Jersey. Hey, Brendan, how you doing, man? Thank you for the call.
Yeah, good. I just wanted to say to the caller a couple calls back.
Yeah,
your
Gary.
daughter-in-law.
Gary.
Yeah, if your daughter-in-law doesn't want to vote, then she can't complain about anything. Because if you don't use the one right you have to try to change something, then you just got to deal with whatever comes your way. But that sometimes is the case anyway. But I just wanted to say that, a lot of the younger kids, I mean, I've got a 34-year-old daughter, and I know that she doesn't get her news from TV. TV news has become just a muck and mire. CNN's become Fox Light, trying to play both sides. So they don't figure. So you get these influencers that are on the internet, and, they tend to go where they like what they hear. And that's a lot of us, I would guess. But either way, I say go to the debates, go to where you see on the internet both sides talking back and forth to each other, and listen to what they say, and then make a decision. That's all.
Well, and that's well said, Brendan. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go back to Susan from Kenosha. Susan, good morning to you.
Hi. I just got cut off.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're okay. Go ahead.
I actually grew up with women's rights. I grew up in the era that you grew up in, and I grew up in that era to know what you're talking about, to read and to explore every issue. And that's how I lived my life. That's how I raised my daughter. And my daughter and I don't necessarily always agree on everything, but we have this debate, and then I go and I think about what she has to say, and she thinks about what I have to say, and we come to a reasonable explanation of which way we should go with whatever subject we're doing. Today, in what's going on, is these younger generation are just going about their business of survival. They don't see a future. And what we have to do is we have to get our politicians out of the money-making scheme and give our children a future. And if that means giving them a better education, no matter what it is, I don't care if they want to be a plumber or a doctor, we should find a way to educate our children and to give them a future that they would be proud of. And stop this bickering and name-calling. I don't like to talk to politics with anyone because it always comes down to this bickering and name-calling and I'm right and you're wrong type politics. No one listens to each other. We yell at each other now. That's what we do. And I can understand why these young people just want to walk away from this mess.
Hey, Susan, thank you very much for the call, as always. Tom from L.A., you're up.
Earl, I have been on the show for years, and I'll tell you right now, the biggest problem, like I've always said, is money in politics, money in media, the greed of money. That is the biggest problem of all. It was the Supreme Court decision of Buckley versus Vallejo and First National Bank versus Bellotti. That was Ronald Reagan's Powell Amendment in the Republican Supreme Court that made corporations people. Then we got Citizens United, which was George War Criminal Bush's Supreme Court that actually brought us unlimited amount of contributions in politics. That is our number one issue. If everybody wants to, after this election, get together and actually do one focus, and that is to get money out of politics, you would see government restored back to we the people. And this is just absolutely ridiculous. And the things I've heard this morning are ridiculous. We should be encouraging the young people to get out and vote. Because you know what? That's the only thing that they have. The billionaire has the money. How much is the billionaire spending so people get frustrated and apathetic and don't want to vote? That's who's telling the people not to vote.
Well, Tom, I don't think I heard anybody say that young people should not be supported and young people shouldn't get out to vote. I agree with you as always on the money in politics, but I'll tell you straight up, the money that's in politics right now to attempt to overthrow that is almost an impossible task because the people who have the money aren't willing to give it up. They've got the power. 844-967-2789 is the number. When we come back, we're going to talk about Elon Musk. He says that humanity is doomed if Kamala Harris gets elected. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show on a Motown Monday.
too naughty for all to sing, dance, and clap their hands. Well, just because the record has a groove, don't make it in the groove. But you can tell right away in Dr. A when the people start to move. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over me. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over me.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. That's 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. Calvin, there's a guy from Four Seas, One Family, who says on the text message, you want to read that for us, please, Calvin?
Yeah, he says he's listening from Taiwan. He says that the American people need to wake up. I'm not sure which side he thinks that falls on, but yeah, shout out Taiwan.
Yeah, he says American people need to wake up now. The way people in this part of the world feel, the U.S. has lost its way. That's all the way from Taiwan. But anyway, so Elon Musk, says that humanity is doomed if Kamala Harris becomes president of the United States. Just because somebody has all the money in the world doesn't mean that they have any common sense. And so he says that America is doomed. Humanity, not America, but humanity is doomed. And one of the main reasons he's trying to get to Mars is because humanity on this earth is doomed. So, he's working hard to create, a society on Mars. Let me tell you how stupid that is. The chances of creating a society on Mars, and with the climate, what it is on Mars, the chances of pulling that off in not only in Elon Musk's lifetime, but in the lifetime of his children, his grandchildren, his great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, it ain't happening. And so here's a man with all the financial resources in the world. There's got to be something wrong with the mindset of a man who has that kind of wealth, and he's concerned about, and he's saying humanity is doomed on this earth. Well, I would ask Elon Musk, sir, if you believe that humanity is doomed on this earth and you have the resources to change the trajectory of what's happening on this planet, why wouldn't you use your resources to change that trajectory? Because let's say they're able to pull off life on Mars. So who is it going to be, Calvin? Elon Musk and a handful of others who can afford to leave the earth and move to Mars and reestablish civilization on Mars? I mean, that way of thinking to me is absolutely insane. Use your resources to preserve the planet you're on. 844-967-2789. Here's what Elon Musk had to say on yesterday. On Sunday night, Musk told his ex-followers that in just 2 years, he will send 5 spaceships to Mars. Eventually, he added, there will be thousands of starships going to Mars, and it will be a glorious sight to see. What? And wait a minute, man. However, the vocal Donald Trump supporter said another Democratic presidency would destroy the Mars program and doom humanity by drowning it in red tape. Musk also said earlier in the month, we will never reach Mars if Kamala Harris wins. I would say to you, Elon Musk, I'm not looking for us to reach Mars. And if you ask the majority of the American people, I'm sorry, if you would ask the majority of the people living on the planet if they would much rather live on Earth than to wind up, moving to Mars, they would say, you're insane. Man, here's a man with all those resources. And he somehow believes that his goal is to fill the skies, the universe, with ships carrying people to Mars. Didn't say the moon. It didn't talk about any other planet. His mind is fixated on reestablishing life on Mars, when he should be talking about preserving life on this earth. 844-967-2789. And then he adds to that, well, if Kamala Harris gets elected, humanity is doomed. So let me now go to, because I want to tie this in with some other things that are disturbing as we follow this election cycle. Who was it? I was talking to somebody earlier, Calvin, who was asking me if I was watching, it might have been Mike from Kenosha, the commercials during the football games. And I got to tell you, I saw one that was so disturbing to me that I said I have to talk about it this morning. And this is a flat out lie. I mean, they're telling all sorts of lies. But there's a commercial that said Senator Kamala Harris was looking to use taxpayer dollars for gender affirming, changes to criminals and immigrants. I don't know if you saw that yet, Calvin.
I heard Donald Trump say it in the debate, but I haven't seen the ad.
And they're playing it over and over and over. I mean, why would you believe that any person, sane person, let alone a person running for president of the United States, would say we're going to use the taxpayer dollars for people who are incarcerated for sex change operations and immigrants who come into this country? This shows just how desperate these people are to tell those kinds of lies and repeat it over and over. You see the commercial or whatever it's called, not a commercial, but the fact that they can tell lies like that. And there's somebody who says, oh, by the way, I believe that. I think that's true. I gotta ask, what rock did you crawl from under to think that anybody running for president of the United States is going to say, yeah, we're going to spend taxpayer dollars for sex change operations to people who are in prison and immigrants who come here, illegal immigrants. But yeah, they're pushing that narrative. And there are people who on the right who know that's a lie. I mean, they know that's a flat out lie. And yet they're going to be supporting that. Let's go to CJ. Good morning to you, CJ. You say what?
Well, thanks for taking my call, Earl, because she's flip-flopped on most issues.
Wait a minute, man. Wait a minute. You always ask why I cut you off. This is not about her flip-flopping on issues. Address what I just said. Do you believe that Kamala Harris is looking to spend tax dollars on incarcerated people and illegal immigrants to have sex changes? Do you believe that?
Well, I believe what Bernie Sanders.
No, I'm not asking about Bernie Sanders.
No, come on, let me.
No, I'm not going to let you finish. Answer my question. Do you believe that she is supporting sex changes for incarcerated people and illegal immigrants? Do you believe that?
If she ever did an interview, you could ask the question.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. Thank you very much for the call. You try. All you can do is try. It's absolutely because he clearly believes it. He clearly believes it because he didn't refute it. He wants to change the subject, but the worst part about it is he's not alone. How can somebody believe that? And yet those are the infomercials that are going out all over the nation. You would think that there would be some way to regulate that. The fact that that's allowed to go out over the airways is worse than shameful. I don't know what the criteria is. Maybe somebody in the listening audience does, but that kind of information, those kind of things should not be allowed over the airways because they're bald-faced lies. And anybody who believes that, may somebody have mercy on you. 844-967-2789 is the number. You're tuned into Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. right, welcome to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. So, I'm watching these, I call them commercials because I can't think of anything else. And I watch this over and over and over. Presidential candidate Kamala Harris supports using taxpayer dollars to pay for sex change operations for prisoners and illegal immigrants. And I saw it, they ran it back to back 3 times. And it's a lie. And I don't know if there's so clearly there's not a standard at all when we talk about what they're allowing on the airways. There used to be a time when you couldn't get away with that. They would not allow that. And yet, here it is. And then, a guy calls and I asked him if he believes that. He wants to change the subject. It's a simple answer. You either believe it or you don't. But I know it's a lie. And everybody else knows it's a lie, even the people who put it out. Let's go to Steph from Green Bay. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Good morning. To pick up on your topic you're speaking about, I feel like you're giving us a lie, but you're not giving us the info of why it's a lie or any evidence. So.
What do you mean? No evidence. Where is it? Where is the evidence that she said she's going to? Where did she ever physically say she's going to use taxpayer dollars to support sex change operations for prisoners and immigrants? What do you mean? What do I have to prove to you? They're making the allegation.
Yeah, see, but the thing is that you do a lot of talking on your show, like you overtalk people instead of providing facts so that we can go and say, okay, she didn't do that or she did do it. Because there's more evidence that that when she was in California, that was her mission. She did have a lot to do with the
So let me say this to you. Let me say this to you, man. You want to talk about facts? You prove a fact to me that Kamala Harris, when she was in California, that she said, yeah, we want to make sure that prisoners get sex change operations on the government's dole. You tell me, because that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. So can you provide the evidence that it's not true?
No. See, listen, man. Listen, this is not flip-flop, okay? I'm not the one who's out here creating commercials saying that that's the case. So the impetus is not on me to prove anything. I'm not the one putting that lie out there.
Getting your information based off a commercial, but you haven't done any research to say, okay, here's an article that proves that Kamala Harris did not have anything to do with this.
No, let me try this one more time, sir. People can create and say anything that they want to say in this society. They have a right to free speech. And so just because people say things doesn't mean it's true. So because these people are making those allegations against her, it's not incumbent upon me to dig down and find out whether or not she said it or not. The people who are posing these allegations are the ones who should be able to prove what it is they're saying. Has nothing to do with me doing any research.
You didn't do any research to prove that it's a lie, but you want us to. You didn't go look yourself to see if it's a lie. You just went off the commercial of what you heard from somebody saying is what I'm saying.
Hey, let me say this to you for the last time, Steph. Common sense tells you, maybe, you lack some of that. Common sense tells you that nobody, be it Kamala Harris or anybody in government, is going to use taxpayer dollars for sex change operations for prisoners and immigrants. Maybe you haven't lived long enough to understand that.
You know how to have a conversation without, like, we two grown men, so we have a conversation without it. So I don't have to, just because you don't know, or I think you don't know something, I don't have to say maybe you don't
Hey, young man, thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Charles from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Charles.
Earl, good morning, Earl. You tried everybody's not born with common sense. Earl, I saw the same ad you saw, and I couldn't believe it. Not only did I see that ad about Kamala Harris, but I also saw an ad basically saying that Tammy Baldwin
Same
was in
thing.
support of some clinic in Madison that was performing sex change operations on minors, and they didn't need their parents' consent.
I saw the same commercial.
But when you're losing, Earl, and they know they're losing, then they come out with all the nasty lies. They're not falsehoods. They're not untruths. They're straight up lies. They did the same thing with Mandela Barnes.
Yes.
When Ron Johnson was losing in the polls, and the poll came out that he was losing, they right away they made it seem like Mandela Barnes bought the truck for the man, told the man this is the route you take to run people down, because they were losing. They tried to run the same thing against Tammy Baldwin, and I wish the mayor would have came out with Mandela Barnes and said that wasn't true, but he did it with Tammy Baldwin.
Hey,
when they're losing, Earl, all they do is lie.
Hey, Charles, thank you very much for the call. 844-967-2789. Hang on, guys. We'll continue the conversation. You're tuned into a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.
I don't want no part. I do believe that will only break my heart. Oh, but if you feel like loving me, then you got the notion. Second that emotion. Say, if you feel like giving me a lifetime of devotion. if it's love you're searching for, I hope that love will stay. You just can't throw love away. No, no. I feel like reaching for the sky. Said again, said I feel like reaching for the sky. I'm so inspired, I want to reach a little higher.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. I want to apologize for indulging myself just for a moment. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. You can join us at 844-967-2789. So we're talking about the commercials and these horrible, horrible lies, just flat out lies that are being told. And Calvin, there's so many great text responses. I don't know if you want to read some before we go back to the phone lines, but there's so many of them, and they're right on point.
Yeah, we got Tom from LA texting in. It is amazing to me how the left always has to show proof, whereas the right doesn't prove anything. And yeah, I think that just really goes to one of the callers we had in the last segment talking about how we needed to prove that this commercial was a lie. Well, if she didn't say it, there's nothing for us to show you.
So anyway, so many texts. We really appreciate it. Wish I had more time to get to all of them. Let's go to Eric from Tulsa. Good morning to you, Eric. You say what?
Hey, good morning, Earl. Good morning, Calvin. Hey, I just wanted to say I did a little research on this because I saw those ads too, and it looks as if they're cutting and pasting the video
yes,
to create the impression that she's actively advocating for this for all inmates. But I did some research, and there is, again, like every lie, there's a kernel of truth. Let me say, in 2015, when she was the Attorney General in California, she stated that she agreed with the California Department of Corrections decision. This was their decision to provide transitional care for one particular inmate that had been deemed medically necessary. So the state of California and the correctional department made this decision. She agreed with it. It wasn't her decision. It wasn't her policy. So they came to an agreement with the National Transgender Group to provide care for one inmate. She didn't step in and fight the decision is what it basically came down to, and said that she would continue to support these types of decisions that they made, not her again. In other words, her office would not deny those American citizens the same right that other American citizens have. That was the length, that was the extent of it. It's not her policy. She basically didn't step in and stop the Department of Corrections from doing this while she was the AG. And that's where the kernel of truth is.
So, and Eric, thank you for bringing that forth. So how did the immigrant, the illegal immigrant part of it get added?
Heard nothing about that.
Well, this is part of that commercial. They said for inmates and illegal immigrants, whatever. We do know it's a flat out lie. She did not advocate for that. She is not advocating for it now. And so, for the young man who said I needed to prove that she didn't say it, it's just, it's asinine. Donald Trump says a million different things that are flat out lies. And everybody knows it's a lie. He even knows he's lying. And yet those kinds of things can be, allowed to be seen over the airways. I'm challenging the fact that we allow those kinds of things to happen over these airways when we know they're lies. Let's go to Karina from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Karina. You say what?
Well, I want to say for two topics, the Mars and the advertising.
Yes.
After actually Vance admitted that they're making up the stories, it's it's just a bunch of topics. What can you scare people with?
Yes.
Taxes, immigration, sex change, and jails. Let's put it together so it's real scary and confusing. This is what it is. That's the only thing I see there. And then, I mean, I understand not everybody are because, oh, it's on TV, it must have been right. But he already said that they will make up any story to bring attention. So it's just a gossip. It's an old lady gossip. Now, about Mars, okay, fine. You know, people were laughing at travelers and discoverers who were looking for America, right? They couldn't understand why you need to look for America. But my question is, okay, fine, wonderful. You want to have a base on Mars. Wonderful. People who open up the America to the world very soon figured it out. They don't have enough people to work. This is why they brought slaves over here. Who's working in the Mars if everybody are rich?
You know, Corinna, you've got too much common sense for the program. It's true. You know, for him to make the statements that he made and nobody call him out on it and say, "Hey, Elon, man, what are you drinking and smoking, man?" The chances of creating, a civilization on Mars, clearly nobody who's living today, including a newborn child, is going to be around when, this society can create, another society on Mars. It ain't happening. The chances of it are so remote. There's so many things aligned against it. Can you imagine, Karina, we're living on this earth with the most ideal planet of all of them that has been created to sustain life, air, water, food, the proximity of the earth to the sun that brings about the changes of the seasons, where the earth is located, in harmony with the sun. The earth being the only planet that offers all of those things. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a common sense guy. But why would you not be concerned about saving the planet that you're on? If Kamala gets elected, another lie. If she gets elected, what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to go to Mars. And then there are people, yeah. I guess the guy who called me early and told me to prove it, come on. Thank you very much for the call, as always, Karina. Appreciate it. Hey, Mike, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for taking my call again. I found it very peculiar that somebody's asking for you to substantiate a claim when we're still living the big lie yet today. It's almost like we're in different universes.
Another person is too smart. Another person is too smart for the show. But anyway, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
So, yeah, well, but my thing is, when you have these terrorism types of ads on TV, we don't have the ability to whisk away the 4-year-old grandchildren or the 6 or 8-year-old kids. They're exposed to this nonsense, and it's making an impression. For sure it is on them. So, again, accumulative. If they're watching these hateful, BS-laden ads, when they're 4, 6, and 8, 10, 12, 14 years old, do you think they're going to care much about our nation and our republic when they become adults? Hell no. So, that's my whole point is, we love the freedom of speech. We embrace it, and we want others in all people to have that luxury, that gift, I would say. But darn it, we need to use it in the right way. We shouldn't be able to libel or slander anybody, much less leaders of the free world that we're expecting, to take the baton and run with for the next generation and the generation after that.
So, Mike,
we need to begin protecting America.
So, Mike, you and I are old enough to remember when that kind of stuff wasn't allowed on the airways. You couldn't just say anything on the airways, right? I mean, you couldn't just flat out tell the kind of lies that are being told now. I mean, I'm dumbfounded every time I see these flat out lies, man. The people know their lies. I mean, the people who are creating them. There's not an ounce of truth in them.
But yet they want to insist that corporations are people and money speech. That is at the core, just like Tom from LA reminds us early in office. It is. Dark money is what's making this our great nation, crack in its foundation. We need to fix this, and we can. We just have to believe we can, and we can do this.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much for the call. Hey, CJ, if you can stay on topic, I'll give you an opportunity. Go ahead.
Stay on topic. I'm telling you what Senator Bernie Sanders said. Earl, why is that a problem? This is Senator Bernie Sanders. He's saying that Kamala, is saying what? Am I there?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. Well, that Senator Sanders said that she's saying what she has to say to get elected.
Okay, CJ. Does Donald Trump not say what he has to say to get elected?
He says it right out loud, and a lot of people don't like some of his opinions, but they love his policy.
I said no. Okay, wait a minute. So here's why it's so hard to have a dialogue with you. You say that Kamala Harris is saying whatever she has to say to get elected. Donald Trump says likewise. And so what's the difference?
Because I think he's being honest with
you think
and his values.
Well, the operative thing is you think he's being honest. You don't know. But in her case, you right away condemn her and say she's not being honest. You don't know whether Donald Trump is being honest or not. You just assume he's being honest because he's your man.
No, Earl, it's quite obvious.
What's quite obvious?
She doesn't do interviews. She doesn't do interviews. She doesn't state her policies. She says that her values haven't changed, but she's changed her opinion on a lot of
issues. Hey, CJ, you know, man, 844-967-2789 is the number. You're tuned into a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.
I feel like reaching for the sky. Oh, I'm so inspired. I want to reach a little higher. have someone who needs me, someone I've needed so long. For once unafraid, I can go where life leads me. Somehow I know I'll be strong. For once I can touch what my heart used to dream of long before I knew. Oh, someone warm like you would make my dream come true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For once in my life.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Text us at that same number. Before I go back to the phone lines, this is CNN this morning. Trump is getting wilder and wilder, but the White House race remains a toss-up. Democrats have bet the destiny of the White House on the premise that once voters remember the chaos and divisiveness of Donald Trump's presidency, he'd suffer an election-defining slump. Wild weeks of outlandish rhetoric by the ex-president have revived memories of the cacophony of his 4 White House years and shattered perceptions that he is running a more disciplined campaign than in 2020 or 2016. But the nature of the race is a toss-up contest in swing states has not budged. Trump has peddled baseless rumors that immigrants in Ohio are eating pets. He's warned that Jewish voters will be to blame if he loses in November. He's refused to openly condemn a protege in a North Carolina gubernatorial contest who described himself as a black Nazi on a porn site. As CNN's K-File reported last week, Trump also reacted to a second apparent assassination attempt by implying that Vice President Kamala Harris and Democrats are inviting such attacks when they highlight his refusal to accept his 2022 election loss and say he's a danger to democracy. Let's go back to Gary from Sussex. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, I got a question, Earl. Do you think that Kamala Harris does believe in fracking or not believe in fracking? Because the last time she said it, she said during the debate, no, I'm for fracking. But then, of course, back in September of 2019, she said, no, I'm against it.
Hey, Gary, you want the truth? I don't care whether she believes in fracking or not. Okay? I'm just telling you straight up. I don't care. Is fracking the number one issue that people are concerned about in this country? Absolutely not. So I'm not stuck on whether or not she changed her mind on fracking.
Okay, what about abortion? Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm going to ask you two questions. What do you think about her, and what do you think about yourself?
Hey, Gary.
Do you believe?
Hey, Gary.
Wait, I just got to let me ask the.
Yeah, well, Gary, how many talk show hosts do you know that you can call up and ask them questions?
You're great.
You're
great.
Hey,
that's why I listen to
yeah,
you.
but go ahead.
Hey, okay. So do you believe Kamala Harris believes that and wants and supports abortion all the way up until the moment of birth? And do you believe that abortion should be up to the moment of birth?
I mean, man, well, thank you very much for the call, man. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Hey, Brendan, go ahead.
God, it's like banging your head against the wall. And you got to get some music at home, because I saw you digging that music a couple breaks back. It was amazing. But anyway, listen, CJ, you and me can go to the border, get that free house, and then after we get our free house, we're going through the border because Kamal's going to buy us a home. We're going to go to the local high schools and elementary schools and get some elective surgery done. And Gary, do you truly believe that he believes in Project 2025? Or do you believe the crap he says when he tries to say he doesn't know anything about it? Give me a break. It's a cult. It's a cult. Hello, everybody, wake up. It's a cult. It doesn't matter what he says.
Hey, Brendan, thank you very much for the call. Listen, you know, um, we've had a very enlightening Monday morning. I love coming here after a weekend and interacting with you, the listening audience. Again, whatever the Earl Ingram Show is predicated on you, the listeners, and you, the callers. Because, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. But I have to tell you, I don't do radio the same way most do. I can't think of many hosts anywhere, and I've listened to radio over 40 years, who are going to allow callers to ask them questions. Hey, world, do you believe that there should be early abortion? Do you believe in? Come on, man. What is that? You can't call a conservative talk show and ask any of the hosts a question. You may get 10 seconds to answer their question, but that's not how we do radio here. Thank everybody who made the show go. Thank you, Calvin. Up next, Jane Madnair and Greg Bach. Madnair on air. Enjoy this beautiful, beautiful day. I'll be back on tomorrow with Sandy Williams on the Earl Ingram Show.